giving everybody a chance to log in here. So, good morning, everyone. Welcome to QuickBooks for Nonprofits. This is a new webinar for us. Um, so, uh, Before we get started, I'd like to go over a few housekeeping items. Um, you should be receiving a copy of the PowerPoint when afterwards. And a recording of the webinar will be on our website if you want to go back. And we'll pause after each section to address any questions you might have. You can post them to the chat or the Q&A feature, and you'll receive a quick 4-question survey. Excuse me. So we can see how we might be able to improve these. So, my name is Ed Cook, and I am a member of the Canton SCORE team. I've been here for maybe 10 years. For those of you that don't know, SCORE is a national nonprofit that began back in 1964, and it has grown over the years. So we currently have over 200 chapters and 11,000 volunteers. Besides sponsoring educational workshops for small businesses, we counsel. And that's really what we do. That's our forte, so to speak. Our counseling is free and confidential. So if you want to start a business, or if you feel your business is struggling in some certain component, should call us. Locally, we have about 47 counselors. Excuse me. They all have a very unique business skill set. So depending upon your need, we would pull counselors in finance or human resources or nonprofits or creating a business plan. So whatever your needs are, we would kind of specialize the counselors to those needs. We're funded locally by the Stark Community Foundation, the Hoover Foundation, the Greater Canton Chamber of Commerce, and we are a resource partner with the SBA. Let's see. We cover a 5-county area, and our offices are located in the Jackson Township Administrative Building there in Jackson Township. We can meet you there. Our counseling, we can do it in person there, or we're a coffee shop, wherever it kind of works for everyone. We can also do it via email or over the phone. So if you have any needs, you can see our contact information on the screen now. So with that, I think that's all I wanted to say. With that, turn it over to Ann. Ann, it's all yours.
Good morning, everybody. I want to start by going through a little bit of an icebreaker. I'd like to know maybe 5 or 6 of the nonprofits or people we've got on the call today, so that as we're going through the training, this is the first time that I'm running this training using the QuickBooks Online new nonprofit module. So we may jump around a little bit, but I'd like to be able to use examples from people that are on the call, because obviously that's how we learn, is to see it, do it, and then obviously hear it. So I want to know what the name of the nonprofit is, what they do as a nonprofit, obviously in a nutshell. This is your 90-second elevator speech, and then share your name, obviously. So in the chat, if you want to say you want to go, we'll go ahead and then just go through the first 5 or 6 that jump into the chat.
And did you want to open up mics, or did you want to just do the via chat?
No, I want to open up the mics based on the people that get in the chat. So it looks like Sheila was our first one.
Okay. I think can Sheila? Okay, let's see if we can find her here. Sheila, can you unmute yourself? I'm trying to find her here.
No problem.
There's quite a few people that have joined us, so that's a long list.
Yeah.
Hey
See,
Gwen,
there's
can
50.
we give everybody the ability to unmute themselves? Which Sheila's, well, let's
I
see.
can do that. Okay.
Yeah, let's do that. It might be easier. Excuse me.
It's Winston is hers.
Okay. So Sheila, can you try to unmute yourself?
Sheila, are you there?
Maybe maybe we haven't found the right.
Well, we'll come back to her at the very end then. Leah Durst, are you able to unmute yourself?
I am. Can you hear me?
We can.
Okay. Yeah, I'm Test Race Studios. I'm a not-for-profit in Chicago. Missions dedicated to advancing the lives and livelihoods of individuals with special needs. My son Benjamin's a mosaic artist. He's on the autistic spectrum. So I created the studio so he'd have a place to create his art, show his art, sell his art, interact with people, give the community a chance to also work with and not marginalize people with autism.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah, very cool.
Thank you.
And then after Leah, we had, is it Teresa Sims?
So, who else? Who else do we have?
Brenda at We Care Arts.
Yeah. Gwen, have we been able to find? Can they unmute themselves? Yeah, it's a it's a long list.
I know that it's growing.
Yeah, there's like 56 uh people on this. So
Yeah, it's a very long list, and for some reason, I'm not seeing everybody on the list, and I'm
hmm,
not quite sure why. But
okay.
I've unmuted as many people as I could.
Okay. Okay. Well, let's see.
Looks like I can read maybe just a few that are in the
Yeah.
chat here.
Yeah.
So since there's so many of you guys, obviously the mute and unmute feature, usually we have everybody muted during a training so that if for some reason you guys get a call or get interrupted, it doesn't interrupt the training. So because that's usually implemented and then there's so many of you, we can't get through the whole list to find everybody. So I'm going to read just a few that are in the chat just to give us some breakdowns and a little bit more detail. So we have Bob, who is the treasurer oh, at Akron Makerspace. I've heard of that one because I'm from the Akron area. So this one is nice. And then we've got Karen. She's at the Alliance Historical Society. They share stories and preserve history. This is awesome. I've also worked with like Zor down in the Bolivar Zor area for their, you know, they do like haunted stuff and all that kind of thing. So that's awesome to see another one of those in here. And then it looks like Brittany
Karen
is
Act,
from the,
that Alliance Historical Center was actually one of the clients of SCORE Clients of the Year a few years ago.
oh, really? That's
Yeah.
awesome.
Yeah. Mhm.
And then we'll kind of jump down the list a little bit. So we've got TTTO mentoring program. It's helping 16 to 21-year-old foster children become stable, functional people in the community and housing. That's definitely something very needed, I'm sure. And then we'll just jump down to the one at the very bottom here, the last one we'll go over. And that's an executive director for the Heroes Within Your You Network, a youth development organization. So it looks like we've got some common denominators here helping the youth, historical societies, and that type of thing. So we'll definitely have some good examples to go through today. I'm hoping with today's training that either all of you guys are actively using QuickBooks Online or are considering using QuickBooks Online. And we're going to spend some time going through some of the specialty features with QuickBooks Online. Definitely nonprofits with QuickBooks Online. It used to be that you got it for free. And then obviously, as you know, if you're using QuickBooks, a lot of times you guys use a software called TechSoup or an organization called TechSoup in order to be able to purchase your Microsoft Office, QuickBooks, and any other software, Zoom, all that kind of stuff at a discounted price. Okay. QuickBooks Online, because it used to be free, they've decided over the course of the last, I don't know, it's been 8 months. I think Ed and I had been talking about running this course, that they were going to build their own portal. So I actually, in the course of the last 30 days, have loaded a nonprofit on from desktop to online. And been able to kind of navigate through the portal. I was able to use their portal to create our PowerPoints today. And then obviously today we will actually go through the process of registering as a nonprofit and comparing the packages. Okay. So as I was going through building the PowerPoint for today, some of the things that were on the email that went out that we were going to cover, and then I found some additional items I thought that were really important to cover. So there's going to be more content than we had portrayed originally in the actual announcement for the training. So we're going to talk about the nonprofit package options. We're going to look at the dashboard. One of the biggest things you'll notice in the dashboard is that a lot of the stuff is the same for QuickBooks Nonprofit and QuickBooks Online. However, they've used your terminology in your industry, pledges, expenditures, gifts, donations, those types of things. So we're going to be able to see some of that transition as well. We will talk about budgets because obviously as nonprofits, you guys have a ton of budgets. There's a couple different ways not only to do this inside of QuickBooks Online, and I obviously teach it that way, but also there's more features because I've worked with a couple of nonprofits that sadly have had fraud, and so they've had to implement additional processes to make sure that not only are they staying within the budget, but they're fulfilling what we call POs. So we will talk a little bit about that. We're going to go over reports because not only do you have your normal portfolio of reports, but you have a ton of other report options for nonprofits. Again, they are renamed to match the terms that you would use in your field. We're going to talk about book review. Book review is like a very good closing of the month tool. And to be honest, it's awesome that it's on nonprofit, but it should be on all of it because it's such a really cool tool. I got really excited when I was using it yesterday. We're going to talk about connecting income software. This is like donation software, pledge software. If you sell a product, anything like that, you can link in all those types of things. We have a couple miscellaneous tools that we'll go over, and then there's a tax prep process too, which helps you get ready to get over to the accountants or get ready for an audit, any of those types of things. So these are the main things we're going to cover today. Again, I apologize if we jump around because it's the first time we're going to go through it, but I promise that it will be worth it and that you guys will hopefully be as excited about this at the end of it as I am. Okay. So first thing we're going to talk about is packages. So if you just go to QuickBooks Online, you will see just their normal packages. The QuickBooks nonprofit page is actually buried a little bit. So if you are a nonprofit and you didn't get into one of these packages, I do recommend reaching out to Intuit support and getting put into one of these packages because you do get more users, you get more chart of accounts, you get more data housing for less money because you're a nonprofit. Okay. They gave you two options, a plus and an advanced. Just so you know, the plus package pricing, you'll see here it's off 50% off for 3 months right now. But this is actually the same cost as the almost highest tier of QuickBooks Online. So it's the third option they have, and you're getting it as your first option. So you're getting way more features than the other one is getting. So you're definitely getting bang for a buck here. So take advantage of it. Obviously, we're nonprofits for a reason, so we want to do that. You have access to experts for tax help. Okay, this plays into the tax prep process that we're going to go through. You have a free guide set up. This is somewhat of the wizards that you normally have, so that's not anything to be out of the ordinary. And then you have income and expenses. You'll have banking. So QuickBooks obviously always tries to prompt you into setting up their banking and everything like that. And then you've got bookkeeping automation. We're not going to tie too much on that because most nonprofits are not going to use the QuickBooks bookkeepers. You guys have somebody in-house you're using, or somebody that you've outsourced to, or even your CPA might be doing it for you. You've got invoices and payments. This also is called pledges inside of there, tax deductions, comprehensive reports, receipt captures. That's some of the same stuff we have. Mileage tracking, cash flow management, sales tax if you have it, estimates. And then you start to see here between the plus, which is this column here still, and then this is the advanced. You'll start to see where you start to separate. Okay. Differences in advance, you've got asset tracking, you have the ability to sync with Excel, you might have employee expenditures, you could do batch action stuff. I'm gonna venture to bet that we're not doing a ton of batch action stuff, meaning you're doing more than one item at a time. You might have some more controls, cash flow automation, and then you have some data restoration, and then you have support and training, and then you have revenue recognition. So really the big things that most of us are using are on both in the first page. You might have some contractors. You're definitely going to have bill management, which you still have. The Plus has 5 users. QuickBooks normally only has 3. So just so you know, this is a big benefit there to have 2 additional users. The Advanced has 25 users, which is a lot of people to be in your books. And then you can still do inventory and stuff like that.
Hey, Ann,
So-
so from a from a recommendation, it's really kind of budget based, I think, right? What your organization can afford was one question, and the other one was this is from me. Can you convert it to advanced? You can start out at plus, and then you find out that you need some other features. You can switch it up to advanced then.
Yes, correct. It's the same process as the other one. So you can start at the basic and then grow it if you need to, or as your organization grows, grow it, obviously. If you aren't even big enough to think you need the plus version, you can start in a basic version of QuickBooks. It's just kind of a pain in the butt to switch it to the nonprofit version. I'm in the process of doing it with a client, so it can be done. They're not very happy about it. And they make you prove that your nonprofit status is in existence, which is fine. But it can be done. So you have some options there that, yeah, it's got to be kind of budget friendly and then grow it. And if you were to flip mid-month, when you flip to the advanced, you would have a credit for whatever you paid, the $40, $45 a month. You would have a credit towards the $100 of that month. So you would only pay the difference the first month. So it's not like you have to be like, oh my gosh, I bill exactly on this day, I have to switch. QuickBooks is really good about making those credits back and forth, okay? So then let's go, I put the, oops. I put the URL on the top of this page here so that it was easy for us to find today, since I had to go digging for it. And I have, let's see here. Actually left it saved up here on this screen. So we're going to go ahead and buy now on the $45 one. And because I obviously already have an existing account, it's going to prompt me to log in. For the first time you guys are doing it, you would have to actually set it up. And then my company I'm going to do is Excellent Admin. Oh, it wants me to create a new one, not add it in. So let's do this. See, QuickBooks Online has been a little bit fickle the last couple days, so if I have to do it in an incognito window, I will. But let's see if we can get it to load. Okay, continue. There it goes. Okay. So we will just do. Actually, let's do credit card here. And obviously, in order to create your account, you have to have the card information, get your payment information set up right away. So I'm going to stop sharing for just a second, just so that I can put in my credit card information for you guys. All right. And then let me go back to Sharon for us. And you guys should see the little spinny box coming.
Hey, and can they set it up to be an auto pay like every month?
Yes, once you put your credit card information in, it will automatically charge every month, and it should be from the exact day you set it up. So you have, if you're looking at switching from desktop to online, obviously you've got 30 days to try it. And it will recognize if you are in nonprofit desktop, when you go to online, it will recognize you are a nonprofit and try to prompt you into the nonprofit packages. Just make sure you're in the proper screen there, because I know that can be confusing.
A couple people have asked about the recording, and it'll be available on the Canton Score website, which is score.org / Canton, I think, something like that. We'll
That's right.
clarify that.
If I can get QuickBooks to go here. See which screen loads faster.
Just to clarify, that is the correct URL. It's score.org / Canton. And there's a recorded webinar section, so you'll have to hunt it out. So it'll be there soon. So.
Looks like Chrome is not going to work, so I'm going to redo this. Let me stop sharing for 1 second so that I can put this credit card information in again, and then we will get this ball rolling here.
Can you just get QuickBooks through Intuit, or can you get it through TechSoup?
Online version, I did not see an option on TechSoup when I glanced at it yesterday. So I believe
Okay.
this is something you do just get directly from QuickBooks into it. Now, that being said, it might change. I'm sure TechSoup is not going to want to lose that
Yeah.
business there. So I'm sure there's probably something that's going to come about. But when I looked yesterday, prepping for today's training, I did not see that. So now you'll get your little wizard. And, as we go through the whole course today, you'll see that we'll have lots of wizards because it's the first time we're using it. If you transfer your data over, you'll have wizards. And again, you'll have the wizard help for a little bit regardless, because that's one of the service offerings they have, is to make it a streamlined process for you. So we're going to name this just non-profit
Will it
training.
recognize it's a profit or nonprofit based on your EIN number?
Sorry, Ed, you broke up real bad.
I'm sorry. I'll try it again. Gail has a question. If it will recognize your company as profit or nonprofit based on your EIN.
Nope, it doesn't recognize it that way. It's not integrated with any of the federal or state sites in order to recognize you that way. It would only recognize you as a nonprofit as if inside of QuickBooks, when you tell it your industry and stuff, you've selected that it was a nonprofit. And then because for training purposes, we're not bringing desktop data, we're just getting started. And then is nonprofit training company your main source of income? We're going to say yes. And we're going to say 1 to 2 years. So see here, it has no idea what we are. So you just have to kind of tell it. And then industry. Let's do child and youth services. Let's say I'm the bookkeeper or accountant. And you can select more than one, obviously. And we're going to say we have 2 to 5 employees because I have 3. And then now it wants to know what apps you use for your business. So some of these might work with you, some of these might not. ADP might be one payroll provider. That would be a big one. Gusto's payroll. These are obviously ways to take payment. Some of my nonprofits take payment through PayPal. I used to have Amazon charity donations, which I guess they've gotten rid of at this point. And then obviously if there's other apps, feel free to take a peek. They got a long list of things, which is good because the whole point of the nonprofit QuickBooks is the fact that they have built this wizard for you so that you can implement your donation software, pledging software, those types of things in order to try to help make it so it's not so much work on you when it comes to checking all of that inside of QuickBooks. Okay. And then it wants to know what we're going to do with QuickBooks. We might send some invoices. Well, we're not going to accept any payments for training purposes, but you might accept payments in here. You're definitely going to manage bills. You're going to track receipts. Probably not any inventory based on our industry. Probably not any sales tax, that type of thing. So those would be probably the ones we would select. You get an expert with the nonprofit, so you can schedule your call. QuickBooks prides themselves in the fact that they have more support for nonprofits. So nonprofits and the payroll portal are the 2 big ones. We're going to skip for now because we don't need the call for what we're doing. And then it says you will be able to accept payments, track expenses, and pay your team. And I'm going to say we don't want to set up getting paid with invoices because we're not going to turn that feature on. And then it obviously wants to prompt us to link our bank account. So I'm going to skip all of that for now. And then it says, how do you track your receipts? You save them digitally, you have paper, you do both. That's probably about what everybody does, pending how you do it. And as you can see, we're almost through the beginning wizard. Don't need payroll for right now. So some of what we wanted to talk about today is going to be some of the things we see on our dashboard, our navigation board, and those types of things. Okay. So for training for this purposes, obviously I set up a company. So you're going to see me working with the same type of screen that you guys should be seeing versus working in the accounting screen, which is obviously who you would invite as the accountant, or if you have a bookkeeper or anybody like that that would have that. So this dashboard, as you can see, has some home cash flow options. It has a planner. Down over here, you're going to see we have expenditures. So instead of just saying expenses, it says expenditures now. Underneath sales, you're going to see you have pledges. So that's one of the other things we have. Under banking, some of this stuff doesn't really change for us. You have reoccurring transactions, your chart of accounts, banking transactions, all of that. Down here, you have projects, which I didn't think was super relevant to some of the areas that we're working at with nonprofits. So I didn't add it to the list today. as we did talk about it on the last training. But obviously budgets, the next option down, is really relevant to nonprofits. All of us have budgets. We all have to abide by, do planning and those types of things. So we'll go through some of those. You still have your navigation up here. Again, the terms stay consistent. You have a couple other things: delayed credits, delayed charges. Those are different features that nonprofits have access to. And then also over here in your gear icon, you still have your pop-ups here. Okay, so our navigation bars have stayed in the same spot, which is good. So there's consistency no matter what version of QuickBooks you're working in. Obviously, this is just more designed for us from a cash flow perspective, and for nonprofits. Okay, now let's look at the budget tool, because that's going to be where we probably spend a good chunk of today talking about it. So when we create budgets for the nonprofits, especially some of the ones that I work with, again, usually for special needs people, recovering addicts that are getting back into society. I definitely work with some of the youth, and then even maybe some of the chambers. So they're doing a lot of membership dues. They might be renting space. They've got sponsorships or events, those types of things going on. So we do have budgets for most of these organizations, and this is determining, payroll, our overhead costs, how much money we've got coming in, grants that we're anticipating to go after. And then obviously grants that maybe we've already secured for that fiscal year, whether it's a January through December or a June to June. Okay. It doesn't make a difference. You will set that setting up inside of here so that when you say, show me a report for my fiscal year, it matches whether it's June to June or January through December. Okay. So the good news about the budget doc here is that you can import a budget doc if you guys are doing it old fashioned like I do, which is I run a lot of them in Excel. Okay. And the reason for that is because some of my nonprofits are in an older version of QuickBooks and it doesn't have this feature. Also because it has to go through a lot of hands to get approved. As you know, you got to present it to the board, you have to make changes, those types of things. I also like to do it in Excel because until we started using this budget feature inside of here, I always pulled up the previous year budget to then make adjustments for the current year budget based on things going on in the world, hiring changes, raises through payroll, increase in costs, obviously inflation, those types of things. Okay. Well, the good news with this is that with this budget doc option in here, you can actually see all your previous budgets. So it would eliminate you having to do that. And then it also saves the headache that I go through when I do do my budget stuff when I'm tracking it in Excel, of that I have to pull a report out of QuickBooks and then compare it to what I would evaluated us to supposedly have done each month or each quarter. And then say, this is what we budgeted and this is what we actually spent. And then obviously explain where we went over or why we were way under or some of those things. Most of the stuff that I do is just the total budget divided by 12. But for certain nonprofits, your seasons when you're going to be busier. So you might not have, it's the same every month. It might be different. So inside of here, we would set it up to do a budget. So right now, this thinks we're a fiscal year of January through December, which is totally fine. I want to do a profit and loss budget, and I want it to be consolidated, but we'll look at a subdivided too. And then you can pre-fill data, which is whatever we have for 2022 or 2024, or you can go last year so you can see it. Okay. And then obviously adjust accordingly. So I'm going to say to do this year to date, as we don't really have anything in it, but I want it to go to the next screen so we can start to see some of the classes here. So what you'll see in here is the accounts that QuickBooks has just automatically set up based on the fact that we've told them we're a nonprofit in the childcare area, basically. So it thinks there are things that we should already use account wise. So for example, we have income and it says there's billable expenditure income and then there's billable expense income. And then it says, well, we have contributions that are coming in and then all these sub accounts for contributions, grants, in-kind donations, government stuff, donations directed by individuals, and so on. So it has some of the things you're probably going to use. You might not use all of these accounts, but some of these do really pertain to you. Grants would be a big one. In-kind donations, we know we do a lot of those or get a lot of those. That could be your property tax. That could be mortgage payments. It just depends on what you were set up on and how you got it done. Government grants, this could be that you're funded by another organization ADM board is a good one. They have a lot of that kind of thing. If you have in veteran care services, they've got veteran services that pay. You've got some reimbursements. There's tons of narcotic grants out there to help with the narcotic issue, those types of things. Those all can be government funded stuff as well. Donations by individuals. This plays into people making pledges just because of a campaign. I use the example like One of a Kind Pets. If they take in a big supply of dogs, or Medina Humane Society, I think just took in, what was it, like 155 rats, and obviously they're funding to be able to support those animals. Those would be directed in donations. If you did an event on site somewhere, like a Chipotle, to get a percentage, you might have directed donations, and then obviously you have another sense of getting a percentage of their sales donated to you. So you can see how these kind of play into just the events that you've got going on. And again, you could have more options here. Like some of us like to see, like we have guaranteed grants that we know we've gotten for a fiscal year, so they might have their own line item, especially if they're restricted grants. I would have them separate, because then I would have a fund expense down below that says how we spent each restricted grant. So you might have more detail than just grants, and then all the grants put into one bucket. If you're managing multiple grants, you might need it there. You could have some grant money on the balance sheet as well. Depends on what you need or what are the requirements to use it. Because you would be accruing the expense of it throughout the year. So you would put it on the balance sheet and only claim it once you moved it over. That's something that's done more internally based on the rules of the fundings opportunities that you've gotten, obviously. If you scroll down, I won't go through everything line by line, but then, you might have investment income. That would be, it could be interest from the bank accounts, savings accounts. If you invested money to help your money grow that you had just sitting in a savings account, you might have just miscellaneous sales, things like that. And then obviously they expect us to have advertising and marketing. You might have award and grants other that you would have. Then you're going to have your personnel fees, accounting fees, legal fees. If you have investments, those types of things. You're going to have insurances. These are pretty normal expenses. You're going to have interest paid if you have any. Your occupancy, this is going to be rent, utilities, cleaning fees, those types of things. If you have exterminators, all that kind of stuff plays into that. Office expenses, these are pretty normal. Your bank fees, internet, dues and subscriptions, merchant fees if you're doing credit card processing, or even if you have like PayPal fees, things being deducted, any of that kind of stuff. You might have printing and photocopying. This would be like making pamphlets, flyers for events, those types of things. You probably have a lot of postage for thank you notes. And then obviously you have your software expenses, mostly probably paid through TechSoup. Your overhead for payroll, you have health insurance, workers' comp, all that kind of stuff. Repairs and maintenance supplies. You might have some travel pending the events that you're doing. You bring a speaker in, those types of things. You got vehicle expenses. This could be for trips that are being taken. One of my nonprofits takes a trip at least once a week to go shopping, to go to a restaurant, to help people socialize. They did a big thing for the solar eclipse. They went and watched it at a park. They had like a watch party, those types of things. So they have a van that transports all the members in order to do that. And then obviously you would have your net income. So inside of here, you then could fill in information. So I'm just going to use, so I know for my one, we get 65,000 in a grant, and then our government funding is, let's see here, it's 32. $384, because about 32,000 a month. And so our total revenue for the year is 449. Okay. Now of that, then we go into spending money accordingly. So our accounting fees and our legal fees. This one is, let's see here. Actually, I think it was. We don't do any advertising. We got a grant a couple years ago that just paid for it, so they haven't had advertising in a couple years. You know, liability insurance, as you know, there's a lot of moving pieces to liability insurance. You might insure your executive director. You're going to insure the vehicles that go and all the drivers on it, and then obviously go from there. So this liability insurance, pending size of nonprofit, can be rather expensive. So then occupancy, our utilities run about, there's no rent for our profit here. Cleaning is our Cintas, coming in, toilet paper, paper towel, those types of things. And then obviously, we have an exterminator come in and random things like that. So that would be what I would stick in this bucket, just to give you guys some examples. Let's see here, we probably run. And these aren't real numbers, obviously, just working with, so you guys can see kind of how it plays out. Okay. Error message out of there. And then down here, bank fees might be an annual credit card fee. That's probably about it. Most of the bank accounts don't actually charge us a monthly fee or anything like that, or you've gotten it where you've got the business relationships, so that's good. I would say we probably do 100 in memberships. This current nonprofit doesn't take any credit card processing. They have only cash for like their little lunch options and like little bar to buy candy bars or snacks and things like that. And then so they wouldn't really be able to do anything in merchant fees based on what I'm thinking of. And you guys might not do a lot of merchant fees either. You could change that to just payment processing fees would be a good one to change it to if you are doing a donation software, because you might lose a fee there, or if people are paying through PayPal, you might lose a fee there. Just make it more of a general fee. Office supplies, this could be, you know, anything. Shipping and postage, lots of thank you letters, those types of things. Payroll is probably one of the biggest expenses. I've seen a lot of nonprofits because it takes money to run a nonprofit, obviously. So I would say that a lot of the nonprofits that I work with, it's about a third of their overall income is payroll, third to half. So on 449, we'll just do quick math here. I'm gonna just do a third. So 149,000 there. And then if you scroll down, you can see like my net income is 175. So of the income I put in and the expenses, just as we were going through some of it, I still have to balance out 175,000 in expenses. Okay, in order to balance my budget, because down here your net income usually is zero. You as a nonprofit say you're going to spend everything you get. That doesn't always happen because you get more than you need, or you have grants rollover and those types of things. But obviously you want to do it from there, and then each month it'll go from there. Now, this is me putting it in. And then obviously you can see here is actual numbers. So we don't have anything to compare for actual because we haven't put any transactions in yet. But then you could still change this to quarterly, and then you'll see your quarterlies will come through against your actuals to be able to see it. Because most boards at least meet quarterly, some do bi-monthly. But that's usually the two things I've experienced with nonprofits, is that they at least meet on a semi-regular basis. But you would be able to then pull this report out of QuickBooks and hand it to your board, or send it out in an email for review so that boards could, you know, your board members could come with any questions. And it's saving you the time of printing a report, typing it into Excel, formatting it. You have to write all these accounts onto the side, right? And go from there. So definitely recommend using this budget feature. It does keep your historical budgets. So you can see it'll go back as far as 2021. So you could put previous budgets in here if you wanted to, just to have it all in one spot. Not a requirement if you don't want to. I do recommend at least putting last year's in, because then you have at least 2 years of comparison. Because if you were to pull a report and you seemed a little bit off in the way that the money was being spent, you could look back at 2023 and see what it was. You could also open up however you're tracking the budgets prior and look at it that way too. Just a preference for me, I try to keep, at least 1 to 2, a comparison period in my QuickBooks so that I can look back and forth at it. Okay. Any questions about the budget feature? If you are just starting our nonprofit, which QuickBooks do you recommend? Is there no free QuickBooks platform? Sheila, there is no free QuickBooks platform that I know of at this point. Any other questions about the budgeting feature, guys? Okay, perfect. So here's where you would export and print. And then you have your save option, save and close. We're going to hit save and close. Yes, Ed, if you're asking if you can change the dollar amount by individual month, yes, you can. You, instead of typing it in the total column, you would just type it in the individual months and it would then total it for you. And then you'll see here, now we've got our budget. So we created a budget. Like I said, you can import a budget. QuickBooks Online really, really likes Excel documents or text files. So feel free to make sure you have it in the proper file format and then you can import it. It might just need some help when it's trying to map the data somewhere, meaning if it doesn't have an account name that you have on the sheet in QuickBooks, you might have to create that while in the process of importing.
Can you upload a previous a budget that you might have had?
Yes. So if you go into import, you can tell it what time frame you want to upload it for. And again, right now I just have it on the January through December, but I'll show you guys under miscellaneous tools how to change, what type of calendar year you're running. Okay. So now let's take a minute and talk about reports. So obviously budget wise, a lot of the things that I see for most of my nonprofits is that the board really focuses on the budget. They were focused on what was our budgeted numbers versus what we actually spent. They don't maybe necessarily look at cash flow, P&Ls, balance sheets, or anything like that. Okay. Except for year end, or obviously then our accountant or whoever's doing the audits, if you do audits on a regular basis, they're looking at the reports. Then for most of my nonprofits, they're either audited once a year or once every 3 years. So we got people in the books kind of all the time to make sure everything is where it needs to go and ties out properly. Okay. So over here in our normal tab, we would go to reports. Accounts receivable is the same. Statements of financial position. This is a new one. So it's not your P&L, it's your statement of cash financial position. And then you've got statement of activity. These are what they expect to be like the 3 main reports that you're going to use. You obviously have a ton of options down here. Like again, you can pull a budget overview, you can pull a budget versus actual, you can pull a statement of cash flows. You've got a lot of options. So if you scroll through here and see things that you might want to show in this bar, all you have to do is click it. And the star turns green. And that will then bring it up here. Okay. So let's do budget versus actual is going to be one that I definitely will use all the time. So budget versus actual just showed up. And then who owes you? Accounts receivable is fine. Pledges and received payments might be something that you look at to tie out against another software that might be actually collecting that information. Totally a preference onto you. Sales by customers. Not something I'm probably going to use for some of the nonprofits that I work with. But you owe unpaid bills or AP. This would be a report I definitely would use. Stay green. There we go. So those would be the ones that I would say are going to be the ones I use the most. Anything else I might look for might be payroll reports, but because we don't have the payroll module on, it doesn't come up. If you are using payroll on QuickBooks Online, you'd obviously have that ability to see it. I don't think it comes up like, yeah, it doesn't have any of the payroll stuff we would need. But a payroll summary might be something I want. Year-to-date employee earnings would be another thing you might pay attention to. But these would be the ones that I'm normally going to work with and look at. And AP is probably the biggest. Accounts receivable is if you've done something specific for somebody and you're going to collect money, obviously. Sometimes if it's pledges and those types of things, you might not have that. But I just had a grant that one of my nonprofits was awarded, and they had to create an invoice to get paid out on the grant. So I would have an accounts receivable for that invoice that I created in order for them to get the payment for the grant. Sometimes I see that more so when, as you guys know, nonprofits kind of work together. So a nonprofit might be awarded a grant and then have to disperse it to the other nonprofits that were awarded the same grant based on the percentages, whatever that might be. Okay. So yeah, so then we can look at, let's look at a statement of financial position here. So we have no data in here right now, but I just want to go over, like, over here, you have the ability to change the time frame you're looking at. Whoop. See if it'll bring it back for us. So you can change it here with the drop down. You can also change the dates by typing in here. Cash versus accrual, depends on your accounting method, obviously. You can show it by weeks, months, quarters, years. You can even show by customer or vendors. You can compare to the previous year. Again, more for you. There's also a comparison report option that you could add to your list and not have to then do more customization stuff. And then you can click run. You can customize the report, just the way it looks, the names, things like that. It's not something that's usually important, because basically everything that we see on here is the information that we either typed in originally, which is really important to type everything in, address, all that kind of stuff, so it's accurate. It's less labor for you later, or it was already in QuickBooks Desktop and we moved it to online, and so that data stays inside of there. Okay. You can also go back to your report list by clicking, the little tiny print up there to then go back and see. Now, these settings here are based on individual login. So if you have somebody that says, oh my gosh, I unstarred something, and you log in as you to see it, it's going to be this, whatever yours was last, not that somebody else unstarred it. So they would have to correct it in their individual login. So I wanted to specify that, because these are basically what they would consider like a customized field for you based on users. Okay. If you want to look at management reports, if you're an executive director, you just want to look at high level stuff, this is a feature that is not in normal QuickBooks. This is a nonprofit feature here. You've got a company overview. You can look at this year. You've got sales performance if you're obviously using invoicing and pledging and stuff inside of here. And then you have expense performance, which obviously this would be one that most people would look at to see kind of where they're at. Okay. Any questions about reports, how you would make it? Starred, obviously you can see the customization here for the different reports you would want to do. The management reports is an additional field here. Any questions about any of that right now? I know it's hard because we don't have any data per se inside of here for the reports, but if you look at your QuickBooks and kind of go side by side, and again, when the PowerPoint comes out after class today, you guys will see there's kind of step-by-step screenshots here.
Looks like we have a question.
Yeah. Katie says, I searched and do not see statement of financial position. Katie, are you in the nonprofit version, or are you just in regular QuickBooks? Okay. And you searched like in this find box here. Let's see. Yeah, so it comes up in my search. Katie, that might be something maybe we need to look at individually since it's not coming up for you. Absolutely. And Katie, I'll put my information up at the end of the class today so you can reach out to me directly. Brittany says, does QuickBooks have any predictive analysis tools like forecasting? Not that I'm aware of, Brittany, that I have worked with inside of here. The budgeting would be the only thing that you would kind of consider you guys forecasting, but it's not really doing what I would think you're probably asking for. Yes, that is correct. The statement of financial position is the same as the balance sheet. Any other questions? Okay, so I'm gonna have us take a short 10-minute break. We'll take a 10-minute break now, and we'll take another 10-minute break in an hour. So it is 9:58 now, so we'll come back at 10:08. If you have any questions about anything we've covered so far, feel free to drop it in the chat. We will come back from our little break and go over any of those questions to start off before we dive back in and go into the next section of the training today. From a subscription perspective. Change that screen, we can see the credit card number. Oh, that's company ID. You can only see the last four of the credit card number. Thank you, though. I appreciate that. Leah suggests calling QuickBooks to ask if you're in the nonprofit. Katie says TechSoup only sells the nonprofit, which is good. That would help it. But yeah, I definitely would have thought right here would have told you that you were in the nonprofit. I wonder if you look at your payment history, you can populate. I don't have any history because we just signed up for it today. You can populate an invoice. I wonder if it might say on the invoice. That would be another spot I would look. If it doesn't, then I would say, yeah, probably calling is your best option, or even maybe trying to use your help tool here to chat with them and check your subscription. My only other thought would be if you went into accounts and settings. This is all stuff we set up, your address, names, and all that kind of stuff. Let's see here. Look maybe in advanced. So advanced is going to be how you will change your fiscal year. So you would click this little pencil. First month of my fiscal year, I'm going to say is July. And want to do a cash basis. If you want to close the books, that would lock it. It tells you tell it that you fill out a 990. But yeah, other than that, there really is nowhere that it says that you're in the nonprofit version of QuickBooks. So that would definitely be something. I will look into that, guys, and see if I can't find a better way to do it without having everybody have to call QuickBooks to verify. And Ed, is that something maybe we could send out to everybody in an email if I figured it out by end of day today?
Yeah, and this is John Ripple. Yes, we can do that.
Okay, perfect. And then let's see here. And it does look like if you had purchased QuickBooks through maybe TechSoup, it looks like they do sell it. Was $75 for the year, but they believe it was for profit, not for the nonprofit. And I have somebody else that confirmed that they were on the online version before the nonprofit was added. So perfect. Okay. So let's dive back in. Doesn't look like we have any other questions about anything we've covered so far. Perfect. I'm glad that worked, Lucy. We're going to talk about book review. So book review is a module inside of here, which is one of my new favorites. Book review is a great checks and balances for nonprofits in order to close out the month and have something in place from like a procedure perspective. Okay. So let's see if I can find on the one I was working in yesterday. The book review was in my column here. There we go. Let's keep going down. And where I see it. Huh. Let me get back out of here, out of this one, and let's go back to dashboard here. And then search. Oh, maybe this version didn't have the book review feature. Let me think about this. And I apologize, guys, because it was a feature like right next to projects that had it. So I want to see. Sure, it's not in here. Let's do. Yeah, it was. It was right there in that settings. Okay. I don't know why it's not there. Let me log into the one where I was actually seeing it so that I can show you guys where it was. And then I can see if we can find it in the navigation bar after that. Let's see here. Oh no, it's not in this one either. Well, how did I find it? Click book review. All right, let me go back into our other one then. I'm sorry, guys. I'm trying to. Where's our training company? All right. This is what Google's going to be for because I cannot find where it is and I don't want to waste any time on our training because let's see here. Book review. And I apologize. These are the things that I am learning with this being the first time we are teaching this. Let's see here. Select book review. Yep, I understand. Oh, it is an accountant's tool. So that would be why, because I would be in as an accountant. So let's go ahead and add me as an accountant on our test thing here. Okay, and then manage users. So we can add our user here. I'm going to add me as an accountant. And then let's do wants a security code for adding a user, which is fine. These are all normal things that happen. Okay, and then now I will get an email with my invite to the accountant. Wants another code for me to accept the invite.
Karen mentioned that the books review was on the black side of the menu.
Yeah, down here, but I don't see it under.
Okay, okay. You have
Yep.
to change the type of employee you are. Okay, sorry.
Nope, you're totally okay. Yep. And um mine was it was here yesterday. I mean, I have a screenshot of it on the PowerPoint and I don't see it anywhere listed in there. So that's been a problem, sadly. And even when I click here, I don't see it up in this additional items. But yes, it was right around budget projects. I had it right there. Okay, go back to this one. See here if I can see there's closed books. All right, so there. Let me shift this over for us, guys, so we can see. Here's our little black bar. Still not showing it there. My goodness, it's totally hidden from me for this one. I just had it, they said. Okay, hold on. Oh, right here, book review. Thank you. All right, let me make this screen big then. Rid of all this wizard stuff. Okay. So book review. So the book review is setting up items for a task list, basically, is how I interpreted this module to show you the things that need to be changed, the things that need to be completed to close out a month and be ready essentially to supply reports to an executive director, to a board member, to anybody on your team, CFO, those types of things as well. Okay. So this is your navigation bar inside of here. And I don't know why sometimes the book review is here and sometimes it's not. We'll figure this out before the end of class because I'll put, like I said, in my PowerPoint that you guys will get at the end, I have it from the black bar right here. And then you'll see that I have screenshots of all of the information we can see inside of here once you get those PowerPoints. So you can set this up to be done monthly. You can set it up to do cleanup. You can technically make it for your accountants to see only. You can request information back and forth from people. So it's a really cool tool. I would recommend if you have not only a CPA firm that you work with, or somebody that checks your books, you know, sporadically throughout the year or at the end of the year, that you set them up as an accountant, but then the person that might be doing your actual entry, set them up as an accountant instead of just a normal user so that they have access to this tool. Okay. I think the super admin might have access to this tool as well. Something I was working on, obviously investigating based on being a normal user. I didn't have it on the other version until I added myself as an accountant, as you guys saw the struggle. So what I like about this is these are clickable here. You can set due dates. You can set progress reports. So it's kind of like monitoring a project, only specifically for the book review. You can go down here and it's going to tell you if you have uncategorized transactions you entered without a payee in them, which would be really important in a nonprofit because you need to have as much detail in your records as possible so that if you switch directors, switch bookkeepers, switch CPAs, you get audited, any of those things happen, you've got all the detail you need to be able to see it. Back up the transaction. So if you put in transactions without payees, we might not know what it is later, or we look back at it and don't have any idea. If you have undeposited funds, this account obviously should be cleaned out and zero each month. That means the money you took in, deposited into the bank account, and it all matched. Okay. Unapplied payments, this might be, open invoices, things like that that you have. It could also be bills that weren't paid yet, those types of things. And again, you can click on the little icon here and tell you what's going on with it. So then as an accountant waiting for additional information from a nonprofit or from you, we can see that we're waiting for something, you can kind of checks and balances some of that. And then obviously you'll see that unresolved transactions tells you things. And then there's always additional items that they try to help you with, like check for personal transactions, review loan payments, record cash transactions. And obviously this directs you to the chart of accounts wherever it is, and you can add items. So if there were other things that you were specific to the things that you do on a monthly basis to close your books or review your books, that you can see. Okay. If you look at the account reconciliation, so this is why I mean, like, it can be looked at each month. You can look and make sure that the cash account or bank account, credit cards, loans, line of credits, any of that kind of stuff are all reconciled. So they would all be listed here. And then it would say number of transactions and then when it was reconciled through. So you could spot check and make sure that the person told you it was reconciled, that it was actually done. Your accountant can see that before they review a quarter of your books, 3 months of your books, that the books were actually reconciled. They would be able to see some of those types of things. And then other accounts that might need to be reconciled, or maybe you could even see that transactions were put into the wrong account, which tends to happen if you buy a $300 office chair. People are going to put it in furnitures and fixtures, but it's really probably not a furniture and fixture because it's not a fixed asset at $300. You know what I mean? That would be a major dollar amount. A $300 chair could go into office supplies. Okay. So you would be able to see if there's transactions in here and you're not actually using these accounts, that something would be miscategorized. Okay. And again, you could reconcile lines of credit, business loans, equity. You guys are probably not going to do any reconciliation with. Payroll would be one that you would probably reconcile with. Sales tax would be one that you would do each month. You wouldn't reconcile per se, but you would obviously, if you have it, you would pay it, those types of things. So it gives you some more. And then obviously uncleared transactions over 90 days. So if anything was sitting in your bank rec screen that had never cleared, like somebody didn't cash a check that you sent, that would be maybe put on an unclaimed fund report, would be down here. And then you could go through and see, do I need to contact this person and reissue this transaction? Did I have a duplicate transaction that I caught later? This is going to be a big quick tool to that versus trying to dive into multiple screens and figure out what cleared and what didn't clear. I just did this for a normal client that had, when he moved from desktop to online, he had a lot more information in desktop than he let us know, but the desktop stuff had wrong check numbers. So when we integrated the online version and imported the data, we entered the transactions again because the check numbers weren't right. And so we realized that they were duplicate transactions. And this would have been one way to see that, because he had a ton of stuff in the reconciliation screen that had not cleared. And that would have been one big tell. Things that hadn't cleared, I'd have been like, oh, but that did clear, but okay, here's where it was a duplicate. I had two for the same amount in the same month. Okay. So you'd be able to see that here. Final review. It's going to show you accounts payables, accounts receivables. This could be really good for cash purposes for nonprofits. Most of us plan cash flow each month based on things that are coming through. And then if we get bonus money, we get bonus money type of thing. But you always need to know what you're planning to collect or already have cash wise, right? Which might not show in the receivables, but then you have your payables report. So you know exactly what is due out to be paid, to know that monitoring cash wise to see, make sure you could pay all the bills that are due. And again, you can have actions in here to see, you'll see you still have the request here. If you do accounts receivable, that's awesome. Anybody that you invoiced, or like I said, we've had to invoice for a grant before. When we invoiced for a grant, that would show in our accounts receivable report. And once that money deposits into the account or they send a check, then I could mark it paid. Sometimes you have grants you guys have to invoice for monthly, or government funding that's monthly. I have stuff that comes quarterly with some of the experience on the people that I work with. It just depends. Okay. And then you can have over here for the final review, you have your reports, your balance sheet, profit and loss. If you go to the report screen, they're named a little bit different, obviously, statement of cash flows, that type of thing. But it links you right there. So you could click on here and it's going to direct you into the reports tab, where you can see statement of financial positions. As you know, the name should become interchangeable. And you can see that, okay? And as you see, it opened a new tab. So then if I close this tab, I still didn't lose where I was. So this is a newer feature with QuickBooks Online, where you can have multiple tabs open working on the same type of thing. That doesn't usually happen in the normal QuickBooks. This is something I've only noticed they've done with the nonprofit, where it directs you and opens a new tab for you instead of taking you completely out of this screen, which is nice because then you can toggle back and forth, okay? You also have wrap up. So then time to prepare reports for the board, right? Send a package. So you could build this to send the package, and then you can close the books, okay? If you close the books, it prompts you to create a password. I do recommend using a password to close the books at the end of your fiscal year. This is really more, you could do it in desktop, but really more for online, because it's so easy to accidentally click on a transaction, change the date, change something. And if you have the QuickBooks locked, it won't let you change the date without typing in a password. So you would be making a change that would be deliberate. The reason I say that it's nice to do that is then when you get everything from your accountant, all the adjustments that you need to enter, you enter all the adjustments, your stuff matches to the tax return, and it should be in stone at that point because it's been filed. Okay. You need it for then your charity reporting that you might be doing and all these other things that are happening. And so you definitely want to try to lock that in for those purposes. Okay. So I do recommend doing it. I don't think it needs to be done every month. So this is book review under monthly basis. It would lock it every month, unless you think you're going to change ranks, meaning change executive directors, change accountants, change bookkeepers. Maybe then you want to lock it so that you know where previous person did it versus the new person. But if you set up users properly, it's going to be based on activity of the users, and you're going to be able to go from there anyways. So you're going to know which user made what edit. So right now I'm working in A# at Excellent Admin as an accountant on this screen, right? So that user is the one making any edits here. When we go back to our other screen where I'm just logged in based on what you guys are seeing and not an accountant's tool, right? I'm logged in as Ann Sharp, owner of business, or owner or executive director of nonprofit, right? So then it would say two different ID names, so I would know who's doing what work. Okay. And again, you can link items, create your own checklist. So I know, like for some of my nonprofits, we have big honky binders with procedures and things that we want to do. Obviously, we could put some of that in here for how we close the month. It could be something simple like, how do you put in your 401k entries? If you offer like Aflac insurance, where does that go? Because your employees pay 100% of that. You don't pay it, but you offer it. So that would be another thing you have to tie out. If you have cell phones on there, that would be another thing you might have to tie out, making sure that the cell phone bill, because again, that's paid by the employee, most of the time is tied out against what's coming, because you know that's a payroll deduction, but then you're paying the cell phone bill. And so you've got to tie some of those out. If you accrue expenses, so we might pay our insurance once a year for $15,000, right? But for bookkeeping purposes, we accrue the costs and then we break it up over 12 months of the year so that it's an accurate number during budgeting. So, you know, you might have some of that. So those would be additional items you could add in here as reminders of things that need to be done either to the CPA, bookkeeper, or to yourself, whomever's closing out the books each month. Okay. It looks like we had a question here. Feedback to QuickBooks. Don't hide books review. LOL. Good job, Katie. I appreciate that. Brenda, you're right. That was going to be one of the last things I was going to say. Appreciation. Sometimes it's only entered in once a year. Sometimes you get a schedule from your accountant and you can enter it in every month. That would be another item that you could enter here. That would be something that ties into your financials. Mileage review, any of those types of things, that might be another one as well. Or if you have a lot of cash receipts or petty cash, reconciling out the petty cash, making cash deposits because you only want to keep so much cash on hand. You know, some of those types of things might go into play. Like I use the example of like my one nonprofit sells lunches or a snack bar. So we have that, or they take trips to get people out in the general public. Like the trips have a fee to pay for gas and all these other things. And so we have some of that money coming in. Those are two different petty cash drawers that we have that we would have to manage that you would want here. And again, you might have them set up in your chart of accounts as petty cash food and petty cash trip or whatever activities, whatever your internal accounting stuff is called. But then obviously we make a deposit once a quarter. We do every 3 months, and we take a big deposit to the bank to get the petty cash back down to where it is. And you would have to make sure that that all matched out. Okay. So yeah, this was one of the tools that I got very, very excited about. I liked the way to integrate everything. This is not on, and this is only active to nonprofits. So this was really something that could help streamline and spot check things. I mentioned before that sadly I see in nonprofit worlds lots of theft. It happens. People are not always honest. So this would be a good way to check some of those things because you could load in all the bills, make sure they're being marked off, because where the theft happens in nonprofits that I've seen in the past is that you pay a Spectrum bill, but instead of paying the business Spectrum bill, you're paid your personal Spectrum bill. And so the executive director, if you didn't have your hands on it, wouldn't know because the Spectrum bill was still paid. It just wasn't the right one. And so we can create like additional items to check some of the random utilities, make sure it's tying out to your actual bills, that the amounts are tying out, you know, those types of things. It's just a safety thing. It's not accusing anybody of anything. It happens. I mean, theft can happen anywhere. I've seen it with international bookkeepers and so on and so on. It's not just specific to nonprofits, sadly. Just if you have everything in place, checks and balances wise, and everything is tying to the bank account and you have physical copies of bills and things like that, it would be very easy to find that that was what was happening, to avoid the paranoia, right? Like, so don't feel like you need to be paranoid as nonprofit executive directors, owners, those types of things. Don't be paranoid. Just know that there are things like this that we can implement to eliminate the paranoia or fear or anything that could possibly happen with that. Okay. The other thing that people can use for this are POs, purchase orders, meaning that you know based on last year's history that you're going to spend X on an electric bill, and then you draw away from the PO every month to get it down to where it should be within a few dollars of what you actually spent. And then you would know obviously that it was paying the proper bills, but you would know that if you looked at it. This also would help because you should have a couple people in this role. If you have it set up, you're kind of an established nonprofit and you're working from there. You have an executive director that should see the bills and sign off on them, essentially. You have somebody like me, bookkeeping, admin that comes in, enters the bills and pays them. Okay. And then technically, if you're printing physical checks, you have somebody, you know, the executive director would be then signing them with a secondary signature of somebody. That could be me. It could be an assistant to the executive director that you have. It could be a CFO. Okay. I had a nonprofit that went through transition. We lost the executive director and it was months before they found another one. It was an impromptu, she quit basically. And so I was the only signer. So I started using bill pay. with Chase because I needed a way to not need another signer because we needed 2 signatures, and I needed a secure way to help with the liability and create the picture that this bill came in, I approved this bill, and this bill got paid. But really, it should be multiple people looking at that because then everything is streamlined on the way that you're doing it. Okay. Any questions about this process right now?
Hey, Annie, did you see Karen Peroni's question about a large ticket item?
Let's see here. So Karen, how do you enter large ticket items for depreciation? For example, building or a lawn tractor? So Karen, if there's a loan, you would do a journal entry, which would then take the dollar amount of the full purchase. So I'm just going to use round numbers, $10,000. And I would say fixed asset lawn tractor, $10,000, and then loan, $10,000. Okay. If you're paying cash for it, then it would be bank account information, subtract $10,000 because you would have paid it out of pocket. Fixed asset, lawn tractor, $10,000, so that it balances out. And then based on how you're going to depreciate those. So they sit on the balance sheet at first, and then you could reach out to your accountant and say, I want to depreciate this in full, meaning you want to 179 it and do it this year. And then you could do the depreciation entry, 10,000 divided by 12 months, or however many months you had it. 12 months is just simple right now. Or if you're going to depreciate it over 5 years, then you would take 10,000 divided by 5 divided by 12, and that would be how you could put it in each month. And for items like that, you still would then have to do a journal entry because you're going to have accumulated depreciation, which is going to show on the balance sheet. Okay. To subtract out your fixed asset dollar amounts. And then on the profit and loss, you're going to have just depreciation expenses. Okay. So for journal entries, let me minimize this screen because for accountants, they're in a different spot. Brenda, over here, if you click new at the top, there's journal entries right here. And it will open a screen. Oh, it wants me to log back in. Sorry, hold on, guys. And then just as like a quick thing with journal entries, you can name them. So you can type in this box here. Journal entry is always going to have at least 2 line items because you have to be equal on both sides. So your debits must equal your credits. You can put as much detail in here as you want. And obviously you can change the date. For depreciation, if it's going to be the same every month, you could even make it reoccurring to tell it to hit on the first of every month so that you know that it's going to come in. If you have nonprofit or you don't pay your mortgage because you got it in kind, those would be transactions that you could reoccur each month. The accrued insurance would be another entry you could do each month that could be reoccurring. It just would change every year based on you have additional drivers, you have this, did the insurance premiums go up, that type of thing. But for 12 months, at least the entries could be the same. And then this little dollar or a little clock symbol up here will allow you to toggle between like the most recent journal entries. And then honestly, if you click view more, it takes you to where you would see your list of journal entries. And that's about the only way to see history of journal entries. Okay. But the quick toggle, the little clock symbol at the top is the best way to toggle back and forth. Okay. Right. So now we're going to talk about connecting your income software. Okay. So let me flip here into my. So this technically shows under payment links. So you have payment links, or sometimes it's called payout. Those are your some of your options. The payout is probably what I saw as the accountant, and payment links is what you guys are gonna see. Okay, so get paid easy, link payments, and then you also want to do. I see that one. Let's toggle back over here. And I apologize for toggling back and forth. So it looks like it should be under overview. So let me see if you guys have this one on the, yeah, commerce. So if you click, it brings you to overview, and then payouts is hidden here too. So you have two spots to do it and connect it. Okay. So just to kind of review that again. So if you go under sales, you have payment links here. And then if you go down to commerce, you have payouts here. Okay. Payouts is the one that I would recommend is going to be the one we're going to use the most, because you're going to connect whatever channel you might be using to manage donations on your own. It could be PayPal. I mean, it could be eBay, might not be. If your nonprofit sells art or anything like that, if you've got a Shopify store, this would be where you could link it. If you have like POS system because of certain things that you're doing, you could, like SKU icons, a store, any of that kind of thing, you could link all of that type of stuff through here. So if you click connect sales channel, and I will tell you, sometimes there's an additional fee to link certain channels. You won't know that until you actually try to link yours. It's usually not very expensive, but in the past I've seen like Square, when QuickBooks Online first came out, it was like $10 a month or something to link it. Do you want to turn on inventory tracking? I'm going to say no, because I don't have a store based on the things that we're doing. But if you have a store, it might be different. And then you'll see that it comes up with like the first couple big dogs, and then you say, I don't see my channel. And it gives you a drop down here to select. You've got Etsy, Marketplace, GoDaddy, TikTok, which I didn't realize was such a thing, but it is a thing. WooCommerce is a big one, or you can even select other. And then you can type in whatever it is and see if you can't get it to link. Okay. This is to link from QuickBooks. Sometimes if you get inside of your physical software, whatever you might be using, there might be a download. And if you can find the download from inside of your software, then you can technically import the data without, if for some reason it's one that doesn't link. Okay. And because I tried to Google a couple, there were so many options for some of the things that nonprofits could be using. I didn't want to just pick one to go through the training process with. So if this is something that you want to do and you can't, like I said, can't find yourself in this list or can't load it here later, let me know. We can get together and go over it. But obviously underneath this little gear icon here, you have import data too. And then you can import whatever we would be working with. Technically, your donation software would probably be considered under invoices, because that would then prompt it to be income, would be where I would probably select to import it. And then it might have other items that you would be looking to do. Again, because it's based on so many different industries and things like that, that there's a lot of options out there for you. But it looks like both sides, both parties, the software you guys are using to track it and QuickBooks really want to be able to integrate to make your life a lot easier. Because I know entering every individual pledge or donation or cash receipt or credit item is a lot of work to then tie it to what's reconciling in your bank account. So if we could get the integration, which is the entire purpose of QuickBooks Online, we would be able to then streamline that process for you guys as nonprofits, because I do know that that's one of the areas that is kind of a pain. Okay. Any questions about this? Obviously, I would assume there'll be more questions when you guys actually try to link individually, especially if maybe there's something that you don't have there. Okay. So this is a good spot to stop again for our second break. I told you we're just shy of the second hour mark. But let's take another 10-minute break here. That brings us back at 11:01. And then we will start finishing up with the last few things that we have to go through. And then we will also go over any of the personalized questions you have. Again, drop your questions in the chat. We'll start with those first. And then I will see you guys in 10 minutes. Is there an ability to sandbox, test, integrate before going live? Katie, are you saying that you are not in QuickBooks Online yet and looking to transfer over? Or are you looking at testing out sandbox software before you would probably want to integrate it? Oh, that I don't know for that individual software. Usually when you do the integration or connect it, it tends to have like the sample transaction, the 1 penny to 2 penny type of thing, where it puts it in and takes it back out. But I would say, yeah, you would want to do it even if you did a sample $10 whatever transaction before releasing it to the public. But that would probably be about the only way I would think you could do that. Okay, and then let's look here. Anne, will you review the fixed asset ledger feature? Ed, I can, yes. On the last section on the data input, we can upload the bank statement. Secondly, will it be added? Oop. I lost where it got kicked me to the bottom of the message here, guys. Hold on. Secondly, will it be added to categorize and place it in the correct section of QuickBooks? Lastly, can you upload the invoice and QuickBooks can add it from the invoice, even if it's in PDF? You can upload the bank statement. It will not import the data that is on the bank statement unless you log into the bank and download the actual transaction data. Uploading the bank statement, you would just attach to like the reconciliation summary or inside that review books area. That would be where you would attach it. But it won't categorize or pull any of that data out of the statement and put it in for the for review categorized transaction list unless you download the actual transaction activity from the bank. And then can you upload invoices into QuickBooks and add them even if it's a PDF? For the invoices, if we click the gear icon here and you go into, I'm going to shift this over so it's out of our screen, import data, and it'll change here for us. Invoices, if you select this, it tells you what type of file it wants it to be. So it wants it to be a CSV file. So it won't even accept a PDF file. And the reason it wants it to be a CSV file is so that it can take the individual information off the invoice and be able to put it into your QuickBooks properly. Alicia, I am not familiar with the Apollos software. So sadly, I could not weigh in on that. I would say your opinion might be the best there if you've used it before. It's not something that I'm familiar with. Most of the clients that I'm working with are in either the desktop version of QuickBooks or in the online version of QuickBooks, just because it's the name everybody knows. Okay, so Katie says she has a burning question that she hopes to have answered today, that she would like the reports to show columns by last year, year to date, the actual, and then the budgeted. So, Katie, this looks like to be something that you're probably going to get in the budget report and then customizing the columns or headers for the data that you want to see, or even inside of the budget tool that we talked about, would be where you would see that. The P&Ls, I don't think, let me look. Let's see what we can do with this. Let's go to reports. Yeah, so you can do previous year, year to date, previous year, year to date as a custom feature. And then it would still show you then your actual of what you're spending. So you've got part of it here, not all of it here. Under any report you're looking at, and then compare another period. If you drop this down, it gives you this bar here, and then previous year and year to date would show. And again, you could select, you know, anything that you want to see, and then changes if you want to see any of that. But there's no way to add inside of this, inside of the reports, the budget stuff. So you would want to use the budget report. So budget versus actual. And then you can show like remaining dollar, remaining this. You can compare it to different budgets if you have other budgets available. So yeah, it looks like you can have some of it, but not all of it in one spot, sadly, Katie. I have a for-profit business and a nonprofit. Should I keep the QuickBooks separate, or is there a platform to keep them both together in their own folders? Sheila, good practice is you keep them separate. However, if you could create classifications or locations, either one. You could create each company as its own location / classification. And then when you pulled reports, so let me go back to reports here. In your profit and loss specifically, underneath here, you would pull it by, well, because I don't have them on, it doesn't even show it. Let me turn this setting on. So you have to go to accounts and settings. I believe it's under advanced. So where it says categories, you would have to turn these two items on and hit save. And then down here, you would have the option of, let me go back, I have to refresh it. Your class and locations would be an option here. And then what it would do is it would create a list where it says your income versus expenses, name wise for the category is going to show on the left hand side. And then the top is going to say business A versus business B, and then a total together. So you could do it. That's the one downfall with QuickBooks Online, is that you don't get unlimited accounts like you do with desktop. But good business practice is technically that you keep them separate, as if you were trying to want to sell. You would want the data to be separate versus merging them together. Bob asked, can you create multiple budgets based on a program area and add it up into the overall budget? Bob, that would be more of a project, not a budget. And we are going to go over the projects option here, but you can create multiple projects that play into a budget. And so we'll talk about that before we get off today. And then it says the bank question. I haven't seen anyone with QuickBooks that was connected to your account. What do you mean by that? Are you asking if, like, for the nonprofits using, say, Chase Bank, that you haven't seen where they've actually integrated the bank account into the transactions tab? Okay. So yeah, so 95% of banks, I'm going to be say that because it's not 100%. 95% of banks do integrate inside of here. Depends on what your login information credential wise looks like. So when you link an account to QuickBooks Online, it only allows you to have a username and a password. So a lot of the business accounts have a company ID, a username, and a password. So you couldn't connect the account, you would have to import the data. So you would want to, you could try connect the account, or you could just upload transactions. And then when you are inside of whatever account it is, you would then create, I'm trying to think, it's a QBO, I believe, is the QuickBooks Online download that is there. I know there's a few credit cards that don't download. Sometimes credit unions or smaller banks don't import or download. Sometimes they still connect because of their username or credentials. But yeah, you would go through here and connect account, or again, you can upload transactions here, or even through your gear icon here, you could import data. Does that make sense? Does that answer your question? Okay, perfect. I just wanted to make sure.
Hey, and there is a question in the Q&A section about how does QuickBooks for nonprofits compare with Aplos accounting software for nonprofits?
Yeah, this was in the chat as well.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I'm not familiar with Aplos at all,
Okay.
so I
sorry.
couldn't weigh in on that, sadly. I could take a few minutes at the end of the class and take a look at it personally and give you my opinion on a short, brief 90-second review. But because I've not used it, I don't know. Okay, so let's talk about some miscellaneous tools here. And then we're going to talk about projects. And then our last thing we're going to talk about is the prep for taxes. Okay. So under miscellaneous tools, we've kind of gone through a bunch of different pieces because part of the whole point of this class was to help you guys in nonprofit world see the features that are in the nonprofit portal, but also answer the questions that you guys had directly, even if it's not necessarily 100% a topic that we've gone over today. And so that we've kind of veered a little bit and bounced around a little bit, which is okay. But under our miscellaneous tools, as you know, you've got this wizard here that has all your importing information. We've looked at, your accountings, your users, your subscriptions we've even looked at. And then over here, you have more tools. Journal entries is one of the things that obviously we were going to talk about in miscellaneous tools, and we did touch base with that. But a couple things I want to talk about is delayed credits. So a delayed credit would be something that you might put in because you're anticipating something coming in, but it hasn't hit yet. Meaning like you've been awarded a grant, but maybe the funds are going to disperse once a quarter. So you're going to have a delayed credit. So you would change the date. You could put whatever the grant customer is and kind of go from there. And then you'll see since we turned classes on, you could tie it to a class if you needed to. Okay. You also could have a delayed credit. Technically, if you take credit card processing, because they're going to pool and then deposit in a couple days. So like if you took credit card on Friday, you might not get the deposit till Monday or Tuesday. That could be another delayed credit. Same with transferring from an accounting software. Okay. Those would be the things that you're going to probably use this for. Again, it comes into like doing whatever date you're looking at, whatever day, and then product and services. So this is going to be the things that you have. Okay. The only other reason this might be used is on bills, is if you returned something to a supplier or somebody, or you had a rental fee and you get a deposit back, you could have a delayed credit that way as well. Okay. But this is one of those miscellaneous tools that you just want to know is out there. These are not in normal QuickBooks. This is something that's only in the nonprofit version. Okay. You also will have another option in here, which is delayed charges. So this could be that you booked something for rental, but you don't pay until time of charge and say that the event's not for 3 or 4 months. And the reason you want to use delayed credits and delayed charges is because you still want this stuff to factor when you're looking at cash flow management. It's going to be really important for you to see some of that. So you would use these few and far between. Again, you have your little thing here, which would toggle you back and forth for these. That's a preference for you guys. But I wanted you to know that those two miscellaneous tools are inside of here. Okay. Then we have pledges. Pledges takes you to the invoice screen. So for those of you that don't have the nonprofit version, it would just be an invoice, just the way it's what it's called inside of here. Okay. You can create invoices and send them or just mark them paid. Creating an invoice for every individual person giving you a pledge is a lot of work. I would recommend only creating invoices for people that you're actually invoicing to get paid for. So if you did a fundraiser at Chipotle, you might have to invoice Chipotle in order to get paid 10% that they would owe you based on the sales. They don't maybe hand you a check day of, okay? That would be what you would use an invoice for. Again, if you need to invoice to get funds, on a monthly basis for grants or this, that, and the other thing, you would use invoices for that. You're not probably going to use it just because Joe Smo sent you a check in the mail for $50 because it's a lot of work to just create that. You might just then either under the transaction tab, because your bank account is linked, categorize that deposit appropriately. Or again, if you get your stuff to integrate, then those deposits should tie out and that data should be in there for you. Okay. You can also use credit memos. Those are other things people have talked about. Not the easiest thing in the world to use, but an option. But I would recommend the integration feature is key. If that doesn't work, then when the deposits start coming through the bank, that you're just breaking them down. Especially if for some reason your softwares can't connect, then you have a report inside of the software that's housing all the pledging and donations and stuff. And then we can tie it through either in a journal entry or splitting a transaction. Tie it through to this was for this, this was for this, this was for this, so that it can be on your proper categories on your P&L. Okay, and tie through to the deposit, because your pledging software should have some semblance of a report, just like credit card processing would, that would tell you this is what you took in for the day. This is what's being deposited on X day. And then that should tie to what actually hits the bank account, minus maybe fees if there's something that's in there that we would need to look at. Okay. So those are just some of the miscellaneous tools I wanted to talk about. There's not a ton of them that we need to go over like inside of here, because most of the features we're obviously already using. So it's not something that there's a ton of ton of miscellaneous things, but obviously we have some of the customization here as well. Okay. So let's talk about projects, because we had the question about multiple things going on inside of a budget. So if you click on projects, you can start a project, and we're going to just call this a test project. And I'm going to say that this project is going to run to 12/31 of 2024. And the project is in process, and then say some detail. Training for QuickBooks is my project that I'm working on. Okay. And it wants the project has to be tied to a customer. It doesn't have to be a real customer, right? Just you have to put somebody in there. So I'm going to put myself in here. Because I'm not in there, I'm going to put add. I don't need any detail for myself on there. Then hit save. So where this ties in is that you're going to see that you have an in progress report. You could complete it, cancel if something doesn't go through. You can add an additional project. Okay. You're going to have a summary report here, which says that your project brought in X and your cost was Y. This could tie into, again, the example I used early in the call was One of a Kind Pets took in 100 cats and needed money ASAP and supplies and material ASAP. That would have been a project that they would have put on the fly, right? The Medina Humane Society took in those 155 rats. They obviously need income, volunteers to help with it, supplies, boom, those types of things. These would be, projects. There could be tons of other options for projects, but these would be things that maybe just come up that weren't maybe initially in your budget. Became necessities. And so you can obviously monitor that a little bit separate to make sure that everything that you're spending out is coming in, and then see how it's affecting your budget. I believe it was Bob had the question of, can I create multiple budgets that based on tasks that I'm trying to complete? And this would be where you would want to you would create a project for those tasks you're trying to complete, and then it would tie into the budget. Okay. Down here, you have income that you could with invoices or anything that you tie to a project. So a deposit you can tag into an actual project. You're going to have costs, which could be bills, again, that you can tie to a project, expenses you can tie to a project, and cost, and then it will show you some profit. Down here, you can link transactions based on things you're trying to accomplish. Okay. Time activity is clockwork. You can pull out reports then for this project, which is it profitable? What's billed, unbilled? Those types of things. Project details. This is the stuff we filled out, so you could do other things. And then you can attach receipts and items to this project. Okay. And then this data does go into then your profit and loss. or income statement. And that allows you to then see it on your budget doc as well. And you can create line items for this project, like project phase 1, blah, 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 right? Project phase 2, blah, blah, blah. And you can do some of those things. And then obviously, once you finish a project, you can hit close. And then you still have the history here for that project and be able to see if you needed to then you have something similar come up that's another type of project. Okay. It looks like we had a question in the chat here. So this would be what I would recommend instead of trying to create like mini budgets based on individual tasks that you're trying to accomplish. Let your budget, I mean, you can do that, but I would let your budget doc be your main budget for your whole year with all the customization features that you need inside of there. And then individual things that are happening, or even that, like, for the people in the area here, the Hall of Fame is building a water park. So that would be a project water park, right? Like they could name it that, and that would be something they would be monitoring. Another project could be like Canton Score doing a hiring event. So they've got a lot of people that are going to come out and pay to be at tables to try to interact and do business together. And then people are going to come in and maybe potentially pay to try to interview with all these people and these types of things. That could be a project that they could be doing. Networking, all that kind of stuff, it could break down on some of those things. Any questions about projects and how they kind of tie into the budget? Okay. Then I'm going to slide into our last topic here that we're going to talk about, which is prep for taxes. Woohoo! Okay. So prep for taxes ties into the same type of thing that we were looking at for book review. So underneath taxes, you have a year-end filing. Okay, so this is one part of it where QuickBooks can help you do it because Intuit does tax prep things and all sorts of stuff. Okay, you'll have 1099s that you might need to do at the end of the year. You can obviously, this links with Tax Turbo. I don't recommend doing it on your own. That's my little 90-second elevator speech. I recommend paying a professional to file your nonprofit stuff because your nonprofit status is valuable in my eyes. Therefore, we want to make sure that everything is on the straight and narrow, and it pays to have another set of eyes on your books, especially if you're the owner, executive director, and bookkeeper all in one, because that's how small your organization is. Okay. So it's nice to then have a second set of eyes that just looks at everything at the end of the year and reassures you that everything you've done throughout the year has been done properly. Okay. I don't know about you, but it's a good feeling. So prep for taxes is another accountant tool, as you'll see. So I will click back over to our lovely accountant side. And then we need to go to, let's see here. Where did I find it? Prep for taxes. So under the accountant side, you have your little account tool, and then you have a prep for taxes box. Okay. So prep for taxes is going to have, excuse the wizard, all these navigation bars here. So year-end tasks, this could be, it could be a lot of things. A few things that come to mind, performance reviews, grants renewals, budgeting, that would be things that need to be done. It could be reviewing all your board minutes if you do audits that your auditor wants your board minutes. W-2s, 1099s, any of those tax forms, loading all your statements, attachments, things like that. Like this would be your year-end task list. Anything that you need to do to be prepared to send this over to your accountant for them to do everything they need to do on their end. Okay. So you could create lists, and then obviously this list would stay in here, and you can edit it as things change, more items needed, more items not, those types of things. And you can use their template or you can create your own. Doesn't make a difference at all. Okay. Then you have documents. Boom, portfolio for you to add in any documents you're getting. Interest statements from banks. If you're getting any documents for on the grants that you've gotten. If somebody sends you a W-9 form and then, or they send you a 1099, any of those types of things that you might be getting, usually it's interest from banks and things like that. You guys don't get a ton of documents as a nonprofit. Those you could load in here. Then it's all in one spot for your year-end prep. Again, over here you'll see you can change years, so you can keep multiple years worth of data loaded in here. Just a safe spot to have it on top of having the paper. So I always recommend doing both. Okay. Then you have review and adjust, and this is like your general ledger. Okay. So it's going to show you previous years change, assets, that type of thing, and then obviously it goes down to profit and loss. And you can export this. So a lot of times your review or your general ledger, and I put in quotes, are the things that your account is looking. It shows all the activity that's happened for the year. And we obviously didn't enter anything inside of QuickBooks Online to see that. So there's no data here to look at, but you would have it. And it's going to show them all the transactions. And a lot of times they can see if there's a typo, a miscategorization, or things that need to be changed. They usually can tie just about everything out. Okay. Meaning that beginning balances of the year and ending balances of the year is good. If you have accrued payroll, meaning you had a pay period that ran into January, but part of the pay period should have been in December, that's going to be some of the adjustments and stuff that they're going to be able to see and make any of those. Okay. Grouping and statements. This plays into your revenues. Obviously, you can port this down because then you would have your statement of cash flows, an income statement, and then your balance sheet and all that kind of stuff. And again, you can, as your tools up here, download paperwork pack, carry forward from previously, or you can lock it so that nobody else can make any adjustments. You've got the ability to export it into Excel. Again, for more purposes to have it given to other people. Depends on how many users you're having inside of QuickBooks, those types of things. Okay. And then you've got your tax mapping. So this would be that you decide to use a tax software and you can map it there. I'm not going to click on anything because we're not, like we talked about, we're not going to do it through QuickBooks. But QuickBooks is trying to make it so that nonprofits from start to finish have monthly closers done properly, which makes end closing proper to be able to then do tax prep all in one house. These are all tools that are there for you. Now, the regular QuickBooks Online does have the ability to do tax prep and 1099s and things like that, but it doesn't have a module that walks them through the steps and the tools to make sure that all the things are done. Okay. Again, you guys might have a big book or a list from your accountant for the things they need at the end of every year. And those would be the things that you could then create in here step by step, and then obviously make sure that they're done. And then based on users, who did what, you could see who did what to make sure that everything was kind of framed out properly. Any questions about the prep for taxes? Okay. So then the last thing we're going to talk about is the fixed asset ledger. I'm going to stop sharing for 1 second for us. Let me get clicked back over here. And then so this fixed asset ledger is usually in the advanced level of QuickBooks. And let me look back here. Do we have that in the plus that we are in? I do not know if I will have access to it because I don't think I have it on the one that we subscribe to for training purposes today. So let me see here. Yeah. So it doesn't look like I actually will be able to go over that, Ed, because it doesn't look like we have it in the $45 package we picked. It looks like that one is only in the advanced.
Okay. Okay.
And then it looks like we have a couple questions here. Let me go back to sharing my screen here. Share. let's see here. It says, can you use a different tax software in QuickBooks? I don't believe so. I believe it's only the relationship of the three that they have based on the prompts there. QuickBooks is really trying to build itself to be a one-stop shop. They have bookkeepers that will do bookkeeping for you. I don't know if they have calls or not, but they'll do bookkeeping for you. They have their own relationship for taxes. They have their own processing. Like if you set up processing with QuickBooks, you can't integrate with somebody else. Meaning like if you send invoices, like as a general mom and pop, and they pay them, you pay whatever their credit card processing fee is. You have no opinion on shopping it. It's whatever they have. They really built it to be their own, and they own all of it, and they trap it all. Ed, to go back to your question, if you want to reach out to me directly, personally to look at the fixed asset ledger because you have access to it, I'm happy to look at it with you. Sadly, because we just picked the basic package, we don't have the ability to see that ledger. Any other questions? It looks like we have QA. Oh, nope, same one that was in the regular chat. Okay, I'm gonna show my contact information then. Because I am done through all the tasks that I had to go through with QuickBooks nonprofit that specialized in the stuff that you guys were looking for based on what I thought you would need. If there are more individual options that you guys are looking for or individual detail, feel free to reach out. This is the first time that we've run this training. This training has been highly requested through Canton Score, and I would like to make it bigger and better based on needs of nonprofits, because you guys are the ones doing a lot of the miscellaneous things and trying to find softwares that work to help you grow versus everybody else that just has to kind of conform to it. Looks like we might have a couple more questions. Okay, so no problem, guys. I'm happy to do that. Victoria, you do get a copy of the PowerPoints. I'm going to send them out. I'm going to make a couple just quick corrections to it today. So you guys will probably get those in the next day or so. The only reason for that is we jumped around a little bit. And I'd like to add the few additional pieces we trained on that people had questions on, so it ties through with the recording. And then these guys from Canton Score said that the recording will be available on their website.
You took the words right out of my mouth, Ann. Oh, you're breaking up now. So
We're here, scheduled. I'm happy to do any of that.
okay. All right. Well, we can talk about it, but maybe we could repeat this later in the year sometime. But I'll talk to you offline.
Absolutely. I'm totally fine with that.
Okay. All right. Well, if there's no more questions, I want to thank everybody for joining in. It was a pretty decent workshop, I think. And Ann, thank you so much for your time. It's definitely appreciated. So with that, everybody have a great day and a great weekend. So long.